The transport ship landed on Kalos 7 with a loud bang that shook the ground for miles around. Dr. Han Su stepped out into the orange dust and immediately felt the harsh wind hit her face. The air was thin and dry, nothing like Earth. She pulled her jacket closer and looked around at the small human settlement called New Haven Colony. The buildings were simple metal boxes connected by covered walkways. Tall walls surrounded everything, topped with electric wire that buzzed and sparked. Guards with big guns walked along the top of the walls, their eyes always watching the dark forest beyond. Everything here spoke of fear and constant danger. Commander. Park Dong met her at the landing pad. He was a big man with hard eyes and scars on his hands. "Dr. Han," he said with a quick nod. "You came at a bad time. We lost 3 more people last night." Han Su picked up her equipment bags and followed him toward the main building. "What exactly attacked them?" she asked. "Shadowmanes," Park Dong said. "Big as horses, fast as lightning. Smart as wolves. They hunt in packs and they never give up. Been killing our people for 6 months now." They walked past damaged buildings and broken fences. Han Su saw colonists working to fix holes in walls and replace torn metal sheets. Everyone looked tired and scared. Children stayed close to their parents and jumped at every sound. Inside the main building, settlement leader Kim Bo was arguing with security chief Li Wan about their next move. Kim Bo was a thin woman with worry lines around her eyes. Li Wan was younger but looked just as stressed. "The barriers failed again last night," Kim Bo was saying. "We cannot keep losing people like this. Maybe we should call for evacuation ships." "And go where?" Li Wan asked. "Earth is full. The other colonies are full. This is our only chance to make a new home." Park Dong cleared his throat. "This is Dr. Han Su, the xenobiologist from Earth. She is here to study the Shadowmanes." Kim Bo looked at Han Su with desperate hope. "Can you help us? Can you find a way to stop these attacks?" Han Su set down her bags and looked around the room. Maps covered the walls, showing the colony and the surrounding wilderness. Red marks showed where attacks had happened. There were many red marks. "I need to understand their behavior first," she said. "Why do they attack? What do they want?" Li Wan laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "What do they want? They want to eat us. That is what predators do." "Maybe," Han Su said. "But even predators have reasons. They hunt for food, to protect territory, to defend their young. If I can understand why they attack, maybe I can find a way to stop it without killing them all." Park Dong frowned. "Without killing them? Doctor, these things are monsters. They have no feelings, no mercy. They just kill." Han Su had heard this before on other worlds. Humans always thought alien creatures were monsters until someone took time to study them properly. "I would like to see the attack sites and talk to any witnesses." Kim Bo nodded quickly. "Yes, of course. Li Wan, please show her everything she needs to see." That afternoon, Li Wan took Han Su to see the damaged areas. The metal walls were torn open like paper, claw marks cut deep into steel. The ground was covered with strange footprints that looked like a mix between wolf paws and human hands. "They came from the forest," Li Wan explained. "Always at night when the moons are both dark. They move like shadows, make no sound until they attack." Han Su knelt down to examine the footprints more closely. They were bigger than wolf prints, but showed intelligence in how they were placed. "How many attack at once?" "Usually 5 or 6 adults, but there might be more watching from the trees." As they walked back toward the colony, Han Su noticed something interesting. The attacks always happened near the food storage areas and the water pumps. The creatures were not just randomly killing people. They had specific targets. That evening, she met Nam Gil, a young colonist who worked as a maintenance worker. He was shy and nervous, but he had been keeping his own records of the attacks. "I know people think I am crazy," Nam Gil said quietly, But I think the shadow manes are trying to tell us something. What do you mean? Han-Su asked. The pattern of attacks. They always happen during certain moon phases, and they never attack the medical building or the school. Only the food storage and water systems. Han-Su studied Nam-Gil's notes. He was right. There was a clear pattern that nobody else had noticed. This is very good work, Nam-Gil. Would you like to help me study them more? Nam-Gil's eyes lit up. Really? Commander Park says I am just a foolish kid who reads too many books. Sometimes foolish kids who read books see things that experienced soldiers miss, Han-Su said with a smile. As night fell, the colony prepared for another possible attack. Guards took their positions on the walls. Families locked themselves inside their homes. The electric fences hummed with power. Han-Su sat by her window with night vision equipment, watching the dark forest. She wanted to see these shadow manes for herself. Around midnight, she heard the first howl. It was long and sad, not angry like she expected. Other howls answered from different parts of the forest. They seemed to be talking to each other. Then she saw movement in the trees. Dark shapes moved between the branches, but they did not charge toward the colony like everyone expected. Instead, they seemed to be circling the settlement, staying just out of sight. Through her night vision scope, Han-Su caught glimpses of large creatures with flowing fur and bright eyes. They moved with grace and purpose, not like mindless beasts. Then she saw something that made her heart skip. 3 smaller shapes followed behind the larger ones, staying close to what must be their parents. The small ones moved differently, with curiosity instead of caution. Cubs. The shadow manes had cubs with them. Suddenly, everything made sense. The attacks on food storage, the careful timing, the specific targets. These were not random killings by monsters. These were desperate parents trying to feed their children in a world where humans had taken over the best hunting grounds. The realization changed everything for Han-Su. Tomorrow she would start her real work, not as someone trying to destroy the shadow manes, but as someone trying to understand them. Maybe there was a way for humans and shadow manes to share this world without killing each other. But first, she needed to convince the colonists that their greatest enemies might actually be parents just trying to keep their babies alive. The next morning, Han-Su woke up with a new plan. She had seen the small shapes following the adult shadow manes, and she needed to confirm what she suspected. After a quick breakfast, she gathered her equipment and found Nam-Gil waiting by the main gate. "You want to go into the forest?" Nam-Gil asked nervously. "Commander Park will not like that." "Commander Park does not need to know everything we do," Han-Su replied. "Besides, I cannot study these creatures from inside the colony walls." They slipped out through a maintenance gate that Nam-Gil knew about. The forest was quiet in the morning light, but Han-Su could see signs of the shadow manes everywhere. Broken branches, claw marks on trees, and those strange mixed footprints in the soft ground. After walking for 2 hours, they came to a small clearing where the grass was flattened down. Han-Su knelt and examined the area carefully. "This is where they rest during the day," she whispered to Nam-Gil. "Look at these smaller prints." The small footprints were definitely from young shadow manes, maybe 3 or 4 months old based on the size. There were 3 different sets, which meant at least 3 cubs in this group. A sound from the bushes made them both freeze. Han-Su motioned for Nam-Gil to stay very still. Through the green leaves, she could see movement. Then a small, furry head poked out, followed by bright, curious eyes. It was a shadow mane cub, about the size of a large dog but with longer legs and a more graceful build. Its fur was dark gray with silver spots, and its eyes were intelligent and alert. Instead of running away when it saw the humans, the cub tilted its head and studied them. "Do not move," Han-Su breathed to Nam-Gil. "Let it decide what to do." 2 more cubs appeared beside the first one. They whispered to each other in soft, chirping sounds, nothing like the scary howls their parents made. One of the cubs took a careful step toward Hansu, then another. Hansu slowly reached into her bag and pulled out a piece of dried fruit from her lunch. She placed it on the ground between herself and the cubs, then backed away a few steps. The boldest cub came forward and sniffed the fruit, then picked it up and tasted it. The cub made a happy sound and shared the fruit with its siblings. They ate it quickly and looked at Hansu hopefully for more. She gave them another piece, and this time they came even closer. "They are beautiful," Namgil whispered. "Not monsters at all." "No," Hansu agreed. "They are just children." Over the next few days, Hansu returned to the forest whenever she could. She always brought Namgil with her, and sometimes they were joined by Choi Bin, a young colonist who worked in the gardens and was curious about alien life. The cubs began to recognize them and would come running when they heard the humans approaching. Hansu started keeping detailed notes about their behavior. They played games with each other, practiced hunting by pouncing on leaves and sticks, and took long naps in sunny spots. Most importantly, they were learning to communicate with the humans. The cubs had their own language of chirps, growls, and body movements. When Hansu copied their sounds, they seemed delighted and would try to teach her new ones. But Hansu knew she was taking a huge risk. Colonial protocol said that any contact with potentially dangerous alien life had to be approved by the military command. If Commander Park found out what she was doing, he would probably arrest her and definitely kill the cubs. The problem got worse when Park became suspicious about her daily trips into the forest. "What exactly are you doing out there, Doctor?" he asked during a colony meeting. "You have been here for 2 weeks and we have no report about stopping the attacks." I'm gathering important behavioral data," Hansu replied carefully. "These creatures are more complex than we first thought. I need more time to understand them." Colonial Administrator Yoon Ho, who had arrived from Earth the previous week, was not patient with her answer. "We do not need to understand them," he said firmly. "We need to eliminate them. The parent company is losing money every day. This colony is not productive." Only Dr. Kang Mi, the chief medical officer, seemed to support Hansu's approach. "Maybe the doctor is right," she said. "Violence has not worked so far. Perhaps understanding will give us better results." But Park was planning something that worried Hansu. He had been studying maps of the forest and talking quietly with his soldiers. She suspected he was preparing a major attack on the Shadowmane dens. Her fears proved correct when she overheard Park talking to his lieutenant. "We will strike tomorrow night when the moons are both dark. Find their nests and use the flame weapons. Do not leave any alive." Hansu felt sick. She had to do something to protect the cubs. But what could she do? If she warned the adult Shadowmanes, they would not understand her. If she told Park about her contact with the cubs, he would use them as weapons against their parents. That evening, she made a desperate decision. She would go to the forest one more time and try to warn the cubs to stay away from their parents tomorrow night. Maybe they could hide until the danger passed. She found the cubs in their usual clearing, playing together in the fading light. But something was different. They seemed nervous and kept looking toward the deeper forest. They made worried chirping sounds and stayed close together. Then Hansu heard the adult howls, closer than they had ever been. The cubs ran to her and pressed against her legs, seeking protection. Through the trees, she could see large shapes moving in the shadows. The adult Shadowmanes had found her with their children. Hansu's heart pounded as she realized how much danger she was in. The colonists had prepared for the worst, expecting her to be torn apart by angry parents protecting their young. But as the adult Shadowmanes stepped into the clearing, something unexpected happened. Instead of attacking, they stopped and watched. The biggest one, probably the pack leader, looked directly at Hansu with intelligent eyes. It saw how gently she touched the cubs, how they trusted her and sought comfort from her. The cubs chirped excitedly and ran back and forth between Han Su and their parents, as if they were trying to explain that this human was their friend. One of the adult Shadowmanes made a low rumbling sound that seemed almost like a question. Han Su knew this was the most important moment of her life. Very slowly, she knelt down and placed her hands flat on the ground in what she hoped was a peaceful gesture. She made the soft, chirping sound she had learned from the cubs. The adult Shadowmanes looked at each other, then back at her. After what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, the pack leader took one step back. It was giving her permission to leave safely. Han Su stood up very carefully and backed away from the clearing. The cubs tried to follow her, but their parents called them back with gentle sounds. As she reached the edge of the forest, Han Su turned for one last look. The Shadowmane family was watching her go, and she could swear she saw something like understanding in their eyes. Tomorrow night, Park would come with his weapons and his fire, but tonight she had made the first contact between their species. Now she had to find a way to prevent a war that would destroy any chance of peace between humans and Shadowmanes. The cubs had trusted her, and she could not let them down. Han Su barely slept that night, knowing that Commander Park planned to attack the Shadowmane dens with flame weapons. She had to find a way to stop the violence, but she needed proof that the creatures were intelligent and peaceful. Her word alone would not be enough to change military orders. Early in the morning, she found Nam Gil and Choi Bin waiting by the maintenance gate. "We heard about the attack plan," Nam Gil whispered. "Half the colony is talking about it." "We have to do something," Choi Bin added. "Those cubs do not deserve to die." Han Su made a decision that went against every safety protocol she had ever learned. "We are going back to the forest, but this time we are going to make real contact with the adult Shadowmanes." Nam Gil looked terrified, but he nodded. "What do you need us to do?" "Bring recording equipment and cameras. If I can show the colony that these creatures are intelligent, maybe I can stop the attack." They slipped out of the colony and headed deeper into the forest than they had ever gone before. Han Su followed the tracks and scent trails that led toward the main Shadowmane den. Her heart pounded with each step, but she forced herself to keep going. After an hour of walking, they came to a rocky area with caves and overhangs. This was clearly Shadowmane territory. The smell was stronger here, and she could see claw marks everywhere. More importantly, she could hear the soft sounds of cubs playing somewhere nearby. "Set up the cameras," she told Nam Gil and Choi Bin. "Record everything that happens." Han Su walked toward the largest cave opening and made the chirping sound she had learned from the cubs. Almost immediately, 3 familiar small forms came running out of the cave. The cubs she had befriended rushed to her side, making happy sounds and rubbing against her legs. Behind them came the adult Shadowmanes, moving more slowly and carefully. The pack leader studied Han Su for a long moment, then made a decision that surprised everyone. It came forward and gently nudged one of the cubs toward her, as if presenting its child for her approval. Han Su knelt down and carefully stroked the cub's soft fur. The adult Shadowmane watched closely, ready to attack if she heard its baby, but when the cub purred with happiness, the adult relaxed. For the next hour, Han Su interacted with the Shadowmane family, while Nam Gil and Choi Bin recorded everything. She learned that the creatures communicated through a complex mix of sounds, body language, and what seemed to be limited telepathic connection with their young. The adult Shadowmanes showed her around their den, proudly displaying their cubs and the food stores they had gathered. Han Su realized they were not the savage beasts that Park believed them to be. They were caring parents with a sophisticated social structure, but the peaceful moment ended when they heard the sound of human voices approaching through the forest. Park had come early with a scouting party, probably to plan his evening attack. The adult Shadowmanes immediately became alert and protective, moving between their cubs and the approaching humans. Han Su stood up quickly and made calming sounds. Trying to prevent a confrontation, Park and 3 soldiers burst into the clearing with weapons ready. When they saw Han Su standing among the shadow manes, Park's face turned red with anger. "Dr. Han, step away from those creatures immediately," he ordered. "They are not dangerous," Han Su said firmly. "Look at them. They are protecting their children, just like any parent would." "Those things killed our people," one of the soldiers said, raising his weapon. The adult shadow manes sensed the threat and began to growl, but they did not attack. Instead, they formed a protective circle around their cubs, with Han Su still standing in the middle. "Put down your weapons," Han Su said urgently. "You are scaring them. If you attack now, you will start a war that nobody needs to fight." Park hesitated, clearly torn between his military training and the strange scene in front of him. The shadow manes were acting defensively, not aggressively. They could easily attack the small group of humans, but they were choosing not to. Then one of the cubs did something that changed everything. The smallest cub, the one that had been most friendly with Han Su, walked slowly toward Commander Park. It stopped just out of reach and made a soft chirping sound, tilting its head in curiosity. Park stared at the small creature with confusion. This was supposed to be a monster, but it looked more like a puppy asking to play. The cub took another step forward and gently touched Park's boot with its nose. "It is just a baby," Namgil said softly from where he was still recording. "They are all just trying to take care of their babies." For a moment, nobody moved. Then Park slowly lowered his weapon. "This does not change anything," he said, but his voice was less certain than before. "We still have our orders." "Orders can be changed," Han Su said. "Come back to the colony and see the recordings we made. Show the other leaders what these creatures are really like." Park looked around at the Shadow Mane family, still standing ready to protect their young but not attacking despite being outnumbered and outgunned. "Fall back," he ordered his soldiers. "We will return to base and report what we found." As the humans prepared to leave, the pack leader did something remarkable. It approached Han Su and made a low rumbling sound, then gently touched her hand with its massive paw. It was saying goodbye, and possibly thank you. The cubs gathered around her one more time, chirping happily and receiving gentle pats before their parents called them back. Han Su felt tears in her eyes as she realized she might never see them again if she could not convince the colony to choose peace over war. Back at the colony, the recordings created an immediate sensation. Half the colonists were amazed by the intelligence and gentleness of the Shadow Manes. The other half, led by Administrator Yun Ho, insisted that the creatures were still dangerous and had to be eliminated. "This changes nothing," Yun Ho declared, at an emergency meeting. "So what if they have cubs? Wolves have cubs too, but we still protect our livestock from wolf packs." "But these are not wolves," Dr. Kang Mi argued. "They are clearly intelligent beings with complex social structures. Killing them would be murder." The colony split into 2 factions. Park's military group wanted to use Han Su's contact with the cubs as a weapon, capturing the young ones to use as leverage against the adults. Han Su's scientific group, now joined by teacher Shin Da and farmer Lim Su, demanded that the colony try to establish peaceful relations. The argument was settled in an unexpected way. The next morning, 2 human children wandered away from the colony while playing and accidentally entered Shadowmane territory. When their parents discovered they were missing, panic spread through the settlement. "This is their fault," Yun Ho shouted, pointing at Han Su. "Your peaceful creatures have our children." Park immediately organized a rescue mission with heavy weapons and flamethrowers. "We go in fast and hard," he announced. "Kill anything that moves and get our kids back." "Wait," Han Su pleaded. "Let me try to get them back peacefully. If the Shadow Manes wanted to hurt children, they would have done it already." "You have 1 hour," Park said grimly. "After that, we come in shooting." Han Su ran toward the forest. with Nam Gil and Choi Bin following close behind. She had one chance to prove that understanding was stronger than violence, and the lives of 2 children depended on her success. When they reached the Shadowmane den, they found the 2 colony, children sitting safely in the cave entrance, surrounded by curious cubs. The adult Shadowmanes were watching the human children carefully, but they had not harmed them at all. The moment the children saw Han Su, they ran to her crying. "The big animals found us when we got lost," one of them sobbed. "But they did not hurt us. The little ones shared their food with us." Han Su looked at the Shadowmane pack with new respect. They had found lost human children and protected them instead of treating them as threats. The cubs had even shared their food, showing kindness to alien young ones. As she led the children back toward the colony, Han Su realized that this incident would either prove that peace was possible or provide the excuse that Yun Ho needed to order the complete destruction of the Shadowmane families. Everything now depended on how the colonists chose to interpret this act of unexpected kindness from creatures they had been taught to fear. The return of the children unharmed created chaos in the colony. Some colonists saw it as proof that the Shadowmanes were peaceful and intelligent. Others, led by Administrator Yun Ho, argued that the creatures were just playing with their food and would have eaten the children eventually. They were probably saving them for their cubs to practice hunting, Yun Ho declared at the emergency meeting. "Wild animals sometimes do that." Han Su stood up angrily. "Those cubs shared their own food with our children. How can you call that practicing to hunt?" The argument might have continued for hours, but it was interrupted by an urgent alarm from the communications center. Colony technician Jiang Wu burst into the meeting room with his face pale with fear. "Long-range sensors have detected something terrible," he announced. "There is an asteroid swarm approaching the planet. It will be here in 4 days." Commander Park immediately took control. "How big is the swarm? Can our shields handle it?" Jiang Wu shook his head. "The impacts will be massive. Our underground shelters might protect some people, but not everyone. The surface will be completely destroyed." Kim Bo, the settlement leader, looked around the room with desperation. "What about evacuation ships?" "The nearest rescue fleet is 6 days away," Jiang Wu replied. "They cannot get here in time." Suddenly, the argument about the Shadowmanes seemed much less important. The colonists faced a threat that could kill every human on the planet, along with all the native wildlife. Han Su felt her heart sink as she realized what this meant for the Shadowmane families. Even if she could convince the colonists to make peace with them, they would all die together when the asteroids hit. But then she remembered something from her studies of the planet. The geological surveys had shown extensive cave systems in the mountains, much deeper than anything the humans had built. If those caves were strong enough, they might provide better protection than the colony's shelters. "Jiang Wu," she said, "urgently, do you have detailed maps of the underground cave systems?" "Some, but not complete ones. The caves go much deeper than our equipment could map." "Why?" "The Shadowmanes live in those caves. They might know about deeper areas that could protect us from the asteroid impacts." Yun Ho laughed bitterly. "Now you want us to trust our lives to wild animals?" "They are not wild animals," Han Su insisted. "They are intelligent beings who know this planet better than we do. If we work together, maybe we can all survive." Baraki looked thoughtful. "Even if that is true, how do we communicate with them? You can make friendly sounds with the cubs, but can you explain asteroids and planetary bombardment?" Han Su felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. She had to find a way to communicate complex scientific concepts to aliens using only basic sounds and gestures. The lives of everyone in the colony depended on her success. She spent the next day working with Nam Gil and a linguist named O Ra, who had arrived on the last supply ship. They studied the recordings of Shadowmane communication and tried to develop a basic language system using visual symbols, sounds, and the limited telepathic connection the cubs seemed to have. The cubs are the key, Ora explained. They have stronger telepathic abilities than the adults, and they already trust you. If we can teach them to understand the danger, they might be able to share that knowledge with their parents. Meanwhile, Jiang Wu worked on preparing portable equipment that could sustain human life in the deep caves. Fusion generators, water, purifiers, and preserved food supplies were gathered and prepared for transport. On the second day, long-range sensors detected the first scout asteroids entering the outer atmosphere. They were still small, but they created bright streaks of fire across the sky that reminded everyone how little time they had left. Han Su took her communication equipment and headed to the forest with Nam Gil, O-Ra, and surprisingly, Commander Park. "I want to see this for myself," Park explained. "If we are going to trust these creatures with our lives, I need to understand them." They found the Shadowmane family at their usual den, but the adults seemed agitated and nervous. They kept looking up at the sky and making worried sounds to each other. The cubs stayed close to their parents instead of running out to play. "They know something is wrong," O-Ra observed. "Look at their behavior. They are preparing for some kind of disaster." Han Su approached the cubs carefully and began her communication attempt. Using the visual symbols they had developed, she tried to show them pictures of rocks falling from the sky. She made explosive sounds and pointed upward, then gestured toward the deep caves. At first, the cubs just looked confused. But the smallest one, who had always been the most curious, seemed to understand that Han Su was trying to warn them about danger from above. It made excited chirping sounds and ran to its parents. What happened next amazed all the humans. The pack leader approached Han Su and made a series of complex sounds while gesturing toward the mountains. Then it did something remarkable. It pressed its large head against Han Su's forehead, and suddenly she could sense images and feelings. She saw deep caves that went far underground, stronger and safer than anything humans had built. She felt the Shadowmane's knowledge of underground water sources and air currents that could sustain life for weeks. Most incredible of all, she sensed that they had been preparing for this disaster, somehow knowing it was coming through senses humans did not possess. When the telepathic contact ended, Han Su staggered backward with tears in her eyes. "They know about the asteroids," she told the others. "They have been preparing for weeks. They want to help us." Commander Park stared at the Shadowmane pack leader with new respect. "They knew this was coming before our sensors detected it?" "Their senses are much better than ours," Han Su explained. "They can feel vibrations and magnetic changes that our instruments miss. They have been getting ready to survive in the deep caves." The pack leader made more sounds and gestured for the humans to follow. It wanted to show them the safe places where both species could wait out the asteroid bombardment. But when they returned to the colony with this news, they found the settlement in chaos. A group of hardline colonists, led by security officer Bei Jun, had taken control of the main building and were demanding that all resources be used for human survival only. "We are not sharing our food and equipment with alien beasts," Bei Jun declared. "Humans first. Everything else can die." "If we do not work together, we will all die," Han Su argued. "The Shadowmanes know how to survive in the deep caves. Without their help, our shelters will not be strong enough." "Then we take their caves by force," Bei Jun replied. "Drive them out and take what we need." Han Su realized that some humans would rather die than admit they needed help from creatures they considered inferior. The same prejudice that had caused so much conflict between species throughout history was now threatening to destroy their last chance for survival. As the first large asteroids began entering the atmosphere and the sky filled with fire, Han Su knew she had very little time to prevent a disaster that would doom both species. The Shadowmanes had offered to share their knowledge and their safe spaces, but human pride and fear might destroy the alliance before it could save anyone. The cubs she had befriended were depending on her to bridge the gap between two intelligent species. She could not let them down, even if it meant standing against her own kind to protect the future of both races. The sky burned with falling rocks as the first wave of asteroids hit the planet's surface. Each impact shook the ground and sent clouds of dust and smoke into the air. The colonists had less than 2 days before the main bombardment arrived, and the settlement was falling apart from fear and argument. Baijun and his followers had barricaded themselves in the equipment storage building, refusing to share supplies with anyone who wanted to work with the Shadowmanes. Commander Park tried to maintain order, but even his own soldiers were divided about trusting alien creatures with their lives. Han Su gathered everyone who was willing to listen in the main meeting room. Kim Bo, Dr. Kong Mi, Nam Gil, Choi Bin, Teacher Shin Da, Farmer Lim Su, and about 30 other colonists looked to her for leadership. "The Shadowmanes have shown us caves that go deep underground," she explained. "They have fresh water, stable airflow, and rock formations strong enough to survive the bombardment. But we need to bring our technology to help sustain everyone during the weeks we will be underground." "What about the people with Baijun?" Kim Bo asked. "They have most of the fusion generators and medical supplies." Before Han Su could answer, the lights went out. Through the windows, they could see that Baijun's group had cut power to the main buildings. They were forcing everyone to choose between joining their humans-only survival plan or being left without equipment. "We have to get to the caves now," Park said grimly. "The big impacts will start tomorrow night." Han Su led the group toward the forest, carrying what supplies they could gather. The Shadowmane pack was waiting for them at the edge of their territory, along with several other Shadowmane families that had come from deeper in the mountains. The cubs ran to Han Su immediately, chirping with worry and rubbing against her legs. They could sense the fear and urgency in all the humans. The adult Shadowmanes organized themselves to guide the mixed group toward the cave system. As they traveled through the forest, Han Su noticed that some of the equipment was too heavy for the humans to carry quickly. The mountainous terrain was rough, and several colonists were already struggling with the weight of their packs. Then something wonderful happened. The adult Shadowmanes began taking heavy items from the humans and carrying them easily. They worked together like a well-organized team, making sure no one fell behind and no essential equipment was left behind. "Look at them," Nam Gil said with amazement. "They are helping us even though we are not their family." The journey to the deep caves took most of the day. When they finally reached the entrance, Han Su was amazed by what she saw. The Shadowmanes had prepared gathering areas with soft bedding, organized food storage spaces, and even separated areas for different activities. But as they were setting up the human equipment inside the caves, disaster struck. A large piece of asteroid debris came down early, hitting the mountainside above them. The impact caused a rock slide that blocked part of the cave entrance and sent Han Su tumbling down a steep slope. She landed hard against a stone wall and felt sharp pain shoot through her leg. When she tried to stand, she realized her leg was broken. She could not walk, and the main asteroid bombardment was beginning overhead. "Go on without me," she called to the others. "Get deeper into the caves where it is safe." But the 3 cubs she had befriended refused to leave her side. They positioned themselves around her injured form, making protective sounds and refusing to move when their parents called to them. The adult Shadowmanes faced a terrible choice. The bombardment was getting worse, and they needed to get their cubs to safety in the deepest caves. But their young ones would not abandon the human who had shown them kindness and trust. Above them, the sky exploded with fire as massive asteroids streaked toward the planet's surface. The impacts were getting closer, and soon the area would be too dangerous for anyone to survive on the surface. Then the pack leader made a decision that would be remembered by both species forever. Instead of forcing the cubs to abandon Han Su, the adult Shadowmanes formed a living barrier around both the human and their young. The largest adults used their bodies to shield the group from falling debris, When rocks crashed down from above, the Shadowmanes absorbed the impacts with their thick fur and strong bones. They worked together like a coordinated team, with some protecting from above while others cleared a path toward the deeper caves. Han Su watched in amazement as creatures that had been called monsters by the colonists risked their own lives to protect an injured human. The cubs pressed close to her, sharing their warmth and making comforting sounds, while their parents deflected death from the sky. Slowly, carefully, the Shadowmane family carried Han Su toward the safety of the deep caves. When falling rocks threatened the group, the adults would form a protective dome with their bodies. When the path became too steep for her to climb, they gently lifted her and passed her from one strong back to another. Other Shadowmane families joined the rescue effort, creating an unbreakable chain of living shields that protected everyone from the deadly bombardment. Human colonists and alien creatures worked side by side, sharing technology and knowledge to survive the planet-wide disaster. In the deepest caves, safe from the destruction above, both species waited out the asteroid, stormed together. Han Su's leg was treated by Dr. Kang Mi using both human medical supplies and healing plants that the Shadowmanes had gathered. The cubs never left her side during her recovery. They brought her food, shared their soft bedding, and entertained her with their playful antics. The adult Shadowmanes taught the humans about the underground water sources and air currents that made long-term survival possible. For 6 days, the surface of the planet burned. When it was finally safe to emerge, they found a world that had been completely changed. The human colony was destroyed, the forests were flattened, and the landscape was covered with crater lakes and scattered debris. But they had survived, all of them, because 2 intelligent species had chosen cooperation over conflict. The rescue ships that finally arrived found not a devastated human settlement, but a thriving mixed community that had learned to live together. Han Su, now appointed as the planet's first interspecies relations coordinator, walked through the new settlement they were building together. The cubs, now grown into young adults, still followed her everywhere and served as translators between human and Shadowmane families. The colonists had learned that survival sometimes meant accepting help from unexpected sources. The Shadowmanes had discovered that their planet was big enough to share with another intelligent species. Children from both species played together in the rebuilt community center. Human engineers worked with Shadowmane builders to create structures that served everyone's needs. Scientists from Earth studied alongside Shadowmane naturalists to understand their shared world. When visitors from other human colonies came to see this miracle of interspecies cooperation, they always asked Han Su the same question. How had she convinced 2 different species to trust each other? Han Su would smile and point to the young Shadowmanes who were teaching human children how to climb trees and find edible plants. I did not convince anyone of anything, she would say. I just gave them a chance to show what they were really like. It turns out that love and protection are not human ideas at all. They are universal truths that every intelligent being understands. The Chiu-I cubs had expected the humans to attack them like all the other colonists. Instead, they had formed a barrier of trust around an injured stranger. Their parents had seen that barrier and decided to make it stronger. Now that barrier protected an entire world, built not from weapons or walls, but from the simple understanding that all children, no matter what species, deserve to grow up in safety and peace.